Rick Stojak.
Anyone know what beat that is?
Cowbell to drink Starbucks by.
Play it again.
I don't know what beat. What's the beat?
Play it again.
Well, I played it on cowbell. The actual song is cross stick.
No.
And
No.
there's shaker on it, and that's in the song.
What is it?
Ico?
No.
Close. Well, no. It's
Are you going
it's
to
a-
tell us?
What
it's
is
the
it?
famous song.
What is
That's Sweetest Taboo by Sade.
it?
Cool.
Oh.
Good one.
Well, there you have it.
A deep cut.
Sweetest Taboo. Deep cut.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so
Thank
much
you for watching. Welcome to Drummers Education Connection with Stump, Bart, Jeremy, and Chip with Rick Stojak. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Drummers Education Connection. Today we are here talking about income streams and how to make money as a drummer. This is something I said during my Deck Day presentation about the drum set being a business. And let's not forget that guy right back there in the corner, that drum set that is behind me, is my business, right? And so I think we have to think of it that way. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to make a business out of your drum set and have ways of income around that. But today, before we get started, as usual, we're going to do good things because there's lots of good things that each one of us have going on. So I'm going to throw it up to Rick Stojak right above me in San Diego. Rick, what good thing do you have going on?
Woohoo! My good thing is all the new drum heads that I got at Deck Day at Aquarian last week. And I think I finally have settled in on the drum heads that I want for each of my kits in the studio. So this set now has the modern vintage 2s. And I've got the drum lights in them. So I don't know if you guys can see, there's like, you can kind of see a little light coming through the heads. And it's got that calf skin look. But with the light under it, it just really glows. And so it's super warm sounding. And I've got the modern vintage 2 snare head. And I'm so excited about all this stuff. So let me show you this angle. So my student, there it is. That's the overhead of this kit. And I found the modern vintage on the rotos. And it warmed up the pingy roto tom sound. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Nice.
So this is the student kit. This is the Pearl kit. And I put the Force 10s, the Aquarian Force 10s on that kit. And they're clear so you could see the wood grain. And those are 2 10-ply layers. So they're super durable. So some of my heavy hitter students are coming in, and finally I'm not getting dents on that kit. And the heads, sometimes really thick heads can be a little too muffled, but something about those heads just sing. So I am just like drum head crazy here in the studio. So
Nice.
What ride symbol is that on the student kit?
That is a Radia. Let me go back to that. That's the Terry Bazio.
Oh,
This thing is super dry. And it's not as loud, and it looks so cool too. So I kind of like my students. It's kind of better to have a quieter ride on my students' kit since it's right next to me.
Perfect for playing in odd time signatures.
That's right. Exactly.
you can only play in odd times.
Exactly. It only plays in odd time. Yeah.
Well, you try to play in 4/4, it doesn't make
it adds
sound.
a beat. It's in 5 no matter what you do. Yeah.
It goes to 7. It chops one off. It goes to 7.
While we're at it, I have the Freak Crashes. And it's a little drier, a little quieter, but so crisp and round. It's sounded so good. I don't know if through the internet.
Rick is like a kid in a candy store, but he's always in the candy store.
He is, yeah.
Exactly.
Why is it when I don't know if it's just me, but when we look at Rick's studio and he talks about drums, I get hungry. I'm starving right now. Chip, what do you got going on, brother? What's happening?
Hey,
Good
you
in
know
your
what, man? I got a good story. My good thing is I changed my drum head. I had the Super Kick 10. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was embarrassed, but I had the Super Kick 10 on my bass drum since 2011.
What?
And I don't know how many years that is, but I just changed it a month ago, and I made a post on Facebook about changing the head after 2011 and had the head out there. And a friend of mine, Jeff Keith Spurlock from Australia, said, "Why don't you auction it off to benefit the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance, the DBSA, the people that I advocate for?" And we tried to auction it off, and somebody bid $200 to win the bass drum head. So it's
That's
going to be
cool.
shipped off to the winner, and I'm just super happy about that. I think it's great. And I told Chris about it, and he said, "Yeah, I better give it to the person that auctioned it rather than me." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a smart move."
Did you autograph it?
Not yet, not yet.
That's
That's
great,
cool.
Chip. Good for you. Congrats.
Thanks, man. That was pretty cool. I thought that was good.
That's
Hey, Chip,
really
how was
cool.
cornbread that Chris Brady bought you after death?
Oh man, it was amazing. It was amazing. The cornbread was amazing.
I almost followed you to Tucson after we left Starbucks to get a piece. But what do you got going on, Jeremy? What's happening up there in the Bay Area where it's cold?
Are you guys sitting down?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
My good thing is that yesterday I played the front 9 holes at Tilden Park Golf Course in even par.
Wow.
Oh boy, you're getting
Wow.
That was pretty awesome.
That's pro level stuff.
It was. We won't talk about what happened on the back 9, but the front 9 was pretty epic. That was like one of those days where everything was in the zone. It's just like drumming. It's just like drumming where you're in the zone. You're not thinking about it. You know exactly where everything's going to go. Everything comes out the way you want it to, and you can do no wrong.
That's awesome.
And then you went for a sandwich and you went to the back 9. It's kind of like going on break and you come up for the second set and the whole
Exactly.
band right into the dirt.
After everyone left after the first set, you know, venue's like it was crowded, and then there's like 2 people there, like
Because everybody's our age.
and they're like, "Hey, do you guys mind keeping it down?"
Bartender's like, "Shut up over there, man."
the word
That's
we
awesome, man.
never want to hear.
That's awesome.
You did that.
Well, congratulations on that, man. I got to tell you my good thing. This is so cool. It just happened this morning. I got a phone call, and it was from a former student of mine from like years ago. I hadn't seen this kid in a long time. He's an adult now, and I'd watched him grow up. I knew this kid I taught him how to play whole notes. We started at step 1, and he's gone on to have an incredible, musical career. He's writing songs. He signed to a publishing deal. He has a bunch of stuff sync licensed. He plays everything. Drums are his main instrument, but he plays guitar and piano and sings. And he was always incredibly artistic growing up. Well, now he's a grown adult. And he's like, you know what? I want to start taking lessons again. And I want to take a lesson on how to start. He goes, I want to learn how to start a teaching business. And so, of course, I said, well, go to Drummers Education Connection on YouTube and start at the first video.
And watch 210 episodes. And
watch all these and you'll know exactly what to do. But no, it's really cool. And he just said some kind words. He was like, I was always he was influenced and all this stuff. It was very nice. It was very nice. And it's always great when you hear that you had an impact on somebody's life in a positive way like that. And so that was just great. Really made my day.
That's
Really made my day.
That's really
Awesome.
good.
love it.
Super cool.
So today we want to talk about income and income streams and how to make a living as a drummer. And as I said at the top of the show, my drum set it's a business. This is my business. This is what I do. And this is how I make my living. And as do all of us, all 4 of us. And it's like, how do you turn that into a business? Because you can't, unless you get the gig playing for the Scorpions, you're not going to make a living just playing the drums. It's just, you might make a living, but it's probably going to be meager. Some guys do better than others, but you have to kind of wear a lot of hats to make things happen. And I know we all have a lot to say about it. So rather than jumping in and talking about my stuff, which I have things to say, I'm going to throw it up to Jeremy up in the Bay Area. I've always, I've said this a few times on deck. Jeremy is always like, he's my due north with a lot of things, because of his book, Finding the Groove. He was very inspirational to me to help me finish my books. My first literary book. His book is right there. And so anyway, I want to throw it to him. Jeremy, what do you got? Talk to me a little bit, bro.
I got a lot. I could talk for a whole hour probably. So
I'll make it quick.
Yeah. I'll talk and then until you guys tell me to shut up. I have for myself for at least five different sort of ways in which I make money with what I do. I teach lessons privately one-on-one. I play in about 5 different bands, and I sell my music, and I wrote a book, and I published a book and sell that. So those are all pieces of the puzzle. And then I also started a program, 2 other things. I started basically a School of Rock and Roll type of program. This is before School of Rock even existed. This is back in 1993. It's called BandWorks based here in the Bay Area. And we serve about 1,200 students every year, adults and kids. We basically rock band workshops and summer camps. We also do for kids, teens, and adults. And, you sign up to play in a band. It's not just for drummers. You tell us what nights you're available, what instrument you play, what kind of music you're into, how much experience you have, and we match you with other musicians in the program, and we put you with one of our musician instructors who's a professional musician who plays, most of them play multiple instruments, and they coach the band for 8 weeks, and then they put on a show, and then it starts over again. And this runs, we've been doing this for 30 years.
Wow.
So there's that piece. And then I also run a separate drum school, which is called the East Bay Drum School. And with that, I have a handful of other teachers that basically take overflow students that I can't handle. Or if I don't, want to take on younger kids or whatever it is, I try to keep them working with as many students as I can. And I give them access to my materials, and I coach them through challenging teaching situations. And we just get together every now and again and share, stories and insights and what worked for us and what you might try for this challenging student, or what kind of like what we do,
Yeah.
So that's, I wear a lot of different hats, and that's, the trade-off with all that stuff is that I do have to wear a lot of hats every day, and it's hard to take them off. Hard to take the last one off at the end of the day.
Right.
So I'll often be on the computer till 10 o'clock at night, sending emails, whether it's about scheduling or booking gigs or rehearsals or responding to drum lesson inquiries or managing something to do with BandWorks. So, but that's a trade-off, and I get to work for myself and love what I do, every part of it. And there's like the music part, which is super duper rewarding and fun, and why I got into it in the first place. There's the teaching part, which I absolutely love and I'm super dedicated to. And then there's the business part, which is a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff, which I also enjoy. So those are the things that I have going on.
And deck, and everything we do with deck.
And deck, right.
So Jeremy, may I ask, how many days a week do you usually work, and how many hours a day
Sure.
do you work?
This has changed over the years for me. And now that I'm a little older and a little more well established and my rates are higher and all that, I can relax a little bit and not hustle as hard as I used to to cover everything, which is why I can score even par on the front 9 holes at Tilden once in a while.
Nice.
I teach drum lessons, private lessons, about 20 to 22 hours a week.
Wow.
And I've got that condensed to 4 days. So I teach Monday through Thursday is my teaching days. Friday I'm off, unless I'm gigging or have a rehearsal. And then I'm gigging, most weekends, probably like 6 times a month or something like that.
Okay.
And then, and then everything else is fitting in the cracks. Like, so BandWorks, I don't have like any kind of schedule for it. It's just, I have to deal with stuff as it comes up. Right.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
That's busy. Now East Bay, if I may ask, and do you rent out the facility? Like how do these drummers get paid, and how do new students come in? Like how does that all work?
Yeah, I've got a website. It's eastbaydrumschool.com. And, between the website and I don't do any advertising, it's all word of mouth. People just hear about me as a teacher, or they hear about one of their existing teachers through their students, and they inquire with the school. And then I have a studio where, when I'm not there, it's available for the other teachers to use, but they also teach out of their own studios.
So they kind of find their own students, or you'll give them leftovers?
Well, no, it's not leftovers. I mean, like right now, and for some time, my teaching schedule is full. Like it's as full as it could possibly be, unless you can come at 11 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And even then, I don't. There's beyond a certain number of students, I don't want to take any more students, or
Right.
I start to get
Yeah.
burnt out.
Right.
So, someone calls up, and any students that the teachers get on their own, that's their own business. But any
Yeah.
teachers they get through the school, that's part of my business. If that
I
makes
see.
sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow.
Very
Yeah.
Do you have to
So
do a lot of social media you said it was just word of mouth, but
yeah, mostly word of mouth.
wow.
Yeah.
It's
But
always impressive and I think it's fantastic when I hear someone could pull something off career-wise and they're not using social media. It
well,
can be done.
yeah. I mean, I don't think I was teaching for so long before social media even came around that didn't really have to enter into my marketing strategy, right? When I first started teaching lessons, I was in college, and just put up a flyer in the music store. That was it. And I had 2 students, till I graduated college for the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year. And then out here, when I moved to California, I found a local music store and was teaching out of there, and they would refer me students. And I was putting up flyers in the libraries and music stores and places like that.
Yeah.
But pretty much, once it reached a certain critical mass, it's just been word of mouth ever since.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't rely on social media for marketing, other than trying to get my music and the book out there.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's good.
Now, Rick, what about you? Because I know you've got 4 books published. You've got T-shirts. You've got students.
Yeah.
You've got this. And I joke about this, but I'm serious when I call you the positive energy hand grenade. I mean, you have this whole positive vibe, and it's so infectious and so much fun to be around. I mean, just at dinner the other night, it's like, oh my God, Rick is just the best.
Aw.
What all with your business? What all do you do other than teaching drums? And maybe I just said them all, but what do you do? How does it work?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, on this topic of income streams for musicians, we should address the traditional ways of doing it.
Mhm.
The number one traditional way is to mooch off your parents.
Deliver pizzas.
Wait, can I mooch off of your parents?
No, it's already been done.
Okay.
Not by me. Oh man. Anyway, I take that back. The other way is to mooch off your band and your friends. So this is a way to this is how to counteract all of that, all of these ideas. So
Right.
Bart, to answer your question, look up the 80-20 law of business.
Yeah.
That it's a statistic that 80% of your 20% of your efforts come out to 80% of your results.
Yep.
And so the lion's share of what I do is teach. So I'm in here six hours a day, usually 5 days a week. And I do a lot of drumming along with my students. And so some people just come in to jam too. They're happy to come in and jam and go for it. So I'm certainly getting a lot of playing time in there. And to me, I weigh that against a gig. I get a call for a gig, and I say, okay, well, what's involved with the gig, and what's the pay? And it's $150, $200, and it just comes down to so often, not all gigs are that. I'll take gigs that pay higher, but so many of them are that lower pay that for me, it's just worth it to just stay here and be consistent to my students. And I think my students really tend to appreciate that, because if they, they want 4 lessons a month, they're going to get 4 lessons a month usually. So that's the main focus of what I do. And then, yeah, I do sell the books. That's a nice little steady extra income stream. I spend a lot of time contacting drum teachers all across the world, and let them know about the series. And so that, it's effort, it's direct marketing. If I just made the product and didn't market the product, nothing's going to happen. So, and then it's available on the Hudson. The books are available on the Hudson digital platform, which is just fantastic for international and those who don't want to use paper. And then, I sell the T-shirts. I'll take gigs if it's just super, super fun for me. Like a psychobilly gig where I kind of know the material, I know the style. Those happen here and there. And then the other gigs I do are gigs with DJs. And for me, I'm at a place where I don't really want to be playing, the dumpy clubs. I did it for decades. So for me, playing with a DJ would be a gig at a wedding or a corporate event. And, you dress nice, you're in a nice place, you get great pay. It's the equivalent of doing 4 or 5 other gigs, just doing that one gig. So, fortunately, I could be selective right now. But if you're younger and income streams, man, you do probably have to take as many gigs as you can and network your way out there. So I made a list of other things beyond actual playing drum set that, well, maybe Chip could talk and then we could kind of hit up our list, because there's all kinds of other things that we do. Bart, you're the pinnacle of a person who is just doing a little bit of lots of things. And I'm always in awe and always so impressed, because your income stream, dude, you're like 1 million streams flowing into the Mississippi.
Bart has income rivers. He doesn't have income streams.
Yeah, exactly. Income rivers. And it's just so impressive. We could do this whole show on just all of the things that Bart does to create income. It's so impressive, and it can be done.
Thank you.
Living.
It can be done.
Living.
That's the reason why I can buy gold-plated bars of gold.
Yeah. Why you have that gold toilet.
I have a gold toilet.
Let's not.
So Chip, what do you got going, dude? What do you, and I'm by no means am I rich. Chip, what do you got going on, dude?
What I got going, I got a clipboard and I'm taking notes is what I got going on. I'm listening to you guys thinking about, hey, it's time for a changeover in Chip's world. No, man, if you asked me, 20 years ago, what is going to be your multiple streams of income as a drummer, I never looked at it like that. I just thought that's what I need. The things that I ended up doing were the things that I ended up having to do to pay my rent. And one of the first things that I had to do to pay my rent was get a job and hold a job while I was trying to make my efforts as a musician to become a professional. I remember my manager at the time, my friend Jeff Wilson, told me, we need a job. You need to get a job so we can fund the expedition. The job allowed me to pay my rent and keep the wolves at bay while I ventured out to become a professional musician. So I've had a lot of jobs. I started teaching because a drum teacher at the local music store called me in and say, hey, I'm moving to California. I want you to start teaching for me. And I was like, teaching? What? What? How? And he showed me a book and he goes, you just write the exercise down like this and you get them to do it 4 times. You do that 3 times each lesson and that's all it takes. That's all you go. There you go. Here's the list. Good luck. So I started teaching, and I ended up being able to teach and play gigs, and that's really those two sources of income became what I ended up paying my rent with and everything. So I've been a music teacher, professional drummer for many years now, and since then I've gone on to author DVDs and books that I get royalties from, and I have my website. My music is for sale, and we've got some income through the website. But these things they're not all the very big. It's not, and any one of them isn't the main thing. I kind of use all of them. It takes all of them to keep me afloat. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much do what the other guys are doing. I play with the band, I play with the church, I teach with drums, and then I take gigs that are fun. I know that
No.
I kind of stopped looking at the money when it comes to gigs, and I'm at the point where is this going to be a hell yeah? Or if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no. You know?
I like
And
that. Yeah.
so if it's a hell yeah, then I go take the gig. Like with Lisa Ote and the Desert Divas, I canceled a full day of students to go play this gig, and I probably paid 200 plus just to play the gig.
Right.
But it's worth it for me to hang out with them and get out there and knock the rust off my drum set and play in front of people. And it's a different scene, man. When you're playing in front of a crowd and you're doing the drum solo, they call a solo, and I'm throw the stick up in the air and I see it twisting in the air, slow motion. I hear the crowd start roaring. That's a different vibe than you get when you're playing in church. It's a way different situation, and it's fun for me. It's good for me to get out. But yeah, the thing for me that I'm taking from you guys is that there's got to be different sources of income to kind of really support the expedition, to keep the dream alive, to keep doing. And sometimes you've got to change hats. And I love what was said about sometimes it's really hard to take the last hat off. I had to set myself into a schedule years ago. I learned that I couldn't just do this Walt Disney style, wake up at 3 a.m. and chop away. I had to set a schedule for me so I could have a routine to be well rested and have enough mental energy to face the day and take care of what needed to be taken care of. So that's what I got for you. Go ahead, Bart.
Well, Chip, wait, I just want to, if I may, for 1 second, Chip, I want to mention that you said that you had a day job for a while, and I did too. I worked a day job for decades and did music all at the same time, and I have no regrets about it. I invested in my drumming. I could invest in my career. I could play the music that I wanted to. It was a less stressful life. It was a lot of energy and effort to have like a double career, but there's no point in starving, and you're not a lesser musician if you have a day job at the same time as being a musician.
I agree.
Give yourself a break. Don't feel any lesser if you have to go 9 to 5 or do other jobs. But what we can bring up here in this conversation is music related sources of income. So perhaps your income stream is related to your drumming, so it can all fit. So Bart, you're the perfect example of that. So
Bart is a granimal. We're always telling him to slow down, dude. Slow down, dude.
Well,
but
I thank you for your kind words. I'll say this, okay? Seriously, guys, thank you. It's very nice of you to say that. And I don't really think about it. It's not like I'm like, okay, I'm going to be this monster at it. I think I share the one thing that all four of us share, and that's just I love it. Like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. We had him on the show, Adam Parsons, and we were over at the drum room at his place, and I was like, I can't imagine. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I can't imagine having a day job anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I did it too for many years. I think for me, the one thing that I guess that I preach from the from the mountaintops is work ethic. It's really about a work ethic, and I'm not talking. I'm talking about a work ethic in all areas. Like I've got to get my practice time in too. So there's a lot of time spent there practicing. So the one thing where I learned my work ethic was growing up on on a cattle ranch, as corny as it sounds, and I know I talk about it a lot, but like I'm literally, even if I get home from a gig at 2 in the morning, I'm up at 5:30. I don't,
Wow.
you're not gonna be successful by, "Oh, okay, it's a crack of noon, I better get out of bed." I I I'm up early, and as Jeremy said, I usually I get up, start my day, hit the gym, come back here, I'm on the computer taking care of the business stuff. Um, Emails, setting up lessons, all that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, just like Jeremy, and I want to use this as a place to plug this. I just wrote a book, and actually, I'm also very influenced by my friend Rick Stojak.
Oh,
And so my new book is out on Hudson Music. It's called Drum Up Your Business. Drum is an acronym. Determination, relationships, understanding, and mentorship. I'm going to turn it into, like my friend Rick Stojak, a 4-part series, the Drum Up Your series. And it's going to be a
wow.
book on different drumming related or music business related things. There we go. Thanks, Rick. And it's how to, how to start a business as a drummer, how to watch out for certain things, how to not step in giant potholes, all these things that we've all done. That's what the book is on. And that's what the 4-part series is going to be on. So if you're interested, you want to be a professional musician, not just about being a drummer, check out my book. I will have hard copies, and I'm running a special on it on my website as well. So if you go to my website, bartrobley.com, there are 2 pre-order specials for the hard copy. If you go to Hudson, you can buy it there right now. So there's one of my income streams, and I plugged it. So there's
Nice.
that. I'm in a very fortunate position too. I've played in the same band for 25 years. We still play clubs from time to time, but Sam always says we've broken through the bottom and the middle. And I like that because we do a lot of great gigs in front of big crowds, and they play well. And I am so thankful for that band. I'm so thankful for it. And that band, like everything else that I do in my life, I just push it as hard as I can, and I give it all my energy. I'm very thankful for all of my students, somewhere between, depends on the time of year and everything, but I'm usually about 30 hours a week teaching. And yeah, I just do, and yeah, t-shirts, and I have a number of books out. That's not my Drum Up Your Business is my second literary book, but I have a number of books out. And you guys mentioned social media and websites. I always used to say that your website was the front door to your business, and I still agree with that. You got to have a website to run a business. The social media, I think, changed things, and social media for me, all of my business pretty much comes from word of mouth, but social media is the way to keep it out there. It's kind of, I guess it's like polishing the car. It just keeps it looking good so people know you're there. So people go, oh, I'm looking for drum lessons, and Bart teaches, and he's on social media all the time talking about it. I can reach out to him, or my cousin's looking for drum lessons, whatever. And then I'll say this one last thing, and I'll shut up. I also think that paying attention, I really think this is important. And again, this is going to be another plug, but really paying attention to what is going on around you. And, some people say, well, you got to be in the right place at the right time. But I also am a big believer in you got to make your own luck. I just recently found out a music store that I used to teach at was going out of business. And so I thought, well, let me go down there and see if there's anything I need. Well, long story short, I ended up buying the entire percussion section. I bought everything, and I got a really great deal on it. And now my garage is filled with things that I am now selling to my students and selling online. And I put it on Facebook. And I've got drumsticks coming out my ears. They're all Vic Firth, and I'm selling Vic Firth drumsticks. That's the part where, yes, I'm in the right place at the right time, but I also kind of put myself there. So I think you have to be willing to do all of that. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
to everybody. And if you want drumsticks, by the way, reach out to me, please. DM me. I'm selling Vickford drumsticks brand new for $7 a pair. All sizes, all everything. They're normally between 11 and 15.
You have any
So
kind of inventory part of all the stuff you're selling?
Right now it's all up here, but
Yeah.
I haven't gone through and put it on, and I was going to inventory the sticks.
Yeah.
But what happened was, okay, there's a perfect example of social media. The second that I put out there that I had all these sticks and I was selling them, dude, every standard like 5A, 5B, the most common ones, they're gone. They're gone.
Wow.
Sold them all. But yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff that I'm selling. So that's part of it, it's and yes, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work, but at the same time, I don't care what you do in life, you're going to have to work at it to be successful. And money and success follow in the wake of a lot of hard work. That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? It's just all the way it is. Patrick, I got a snare drum.
I forgot one thing I want to just add real quick. I forgot to mention, I also sell charts online on onlinedrummer.com. And and that's the thing. But we've spent the first half of the show today talking about all the things that we do. And it's great. And it's inspiring to hear. And maybe if you're tuning into this show, I imagine it's because you're interested in like, okay, how can I maybe increase what I'm doing and figure out maybe some avenues that I could generate some income that maybe I haven't thought of. So I thought we could maybe shift the focus a little bit on the second half to talk about what some ideas that you can use. Obviously you've gotten a lot from just hearing all the things we do, and there's all those possibilities, but there's other things that we don't do that are possible to do that other drummers do, right?
Yeah.
Joe Bergamini, he has a charts that he puts together and sells, kind of a working man's chart thing. So if you're looking for charts for your gig, you can get them, through his website. Nate Brown, it started onlinedrummer.com, and it's got all kinds of resources on there for drummers, educational resources, as well as transcriptions of famous rock and pop songs. Jared Falk started Drumeo, which is like an educational channel. Now, all these things on some level require some kind of, impetus and effort and vision and creativity and all the things, required to be a successful business person. And it's not that you have to do any of them, or any of them, but you want to do, if it's something you want to do, make sure it's something you want to do, because it's going to be hard work for a long time. And it may be a lot of work before it makes you any money. But if you're passionate about it and you're dedicated to it, and if you believe it, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing. It's kind of how D.E.C got started, right? Now, all the things that I am involved with, this is how they got started, is with like an idea, a vision or a dream, and then hard work from there, and lots of failures and lots of learning and growth and dedication, to making it quality. So that, like in Bandworks, I started teaching all the classes with my buddy Steve, who's a guitar teacher. And for the first 10 years, it was just the two of us teaching every one of the classes. And then we decided, if we're going to pass it on, have if we keep expanding, have other teachers teaching, how are we going to ensure that students experience the same kind of quality experience that we've been providing for 10 years? So we had to figure out how to train our teachers, right? So there's an example of, like, putting the work in to make sure that the experience is good. Or maybe it's the quality of your charts that you make, or maybe it's whatever, But I think the first thing that you need to think about, my advice would be, like, start thinking of yourself as a business and not just a drummer.
You are your own best commodity. It is that simple. You are your own best commodity.
It's like Sammy Joe said 2 weeks ago, bet on yourself.
Yep. Yes. Totally bet on yourself. Right. You're pointing out all these drummers and stuff that they do. I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Matt Starr. Matt's been on the show, and he's a friend of the deck, and he's gone on to do he has an incredible coaching business.
Right.
I don't know that he gives private lessons. I know he gives private coaching. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, he's touring with Ace Frehley, and he's touring with this band and that band, and playing with this guy, and that guy's playing all over the place. And it's because he believed in himself.
Yeah.
That's right. And a few weeks ago we had Derek Lee, who from Beat Note on, and
Yep.
his thing was, he's a drummer. We're all drummers, right? But he came at it from a engineering background and a computer background, and said, there's this need for this software that doesn't exist, that's easy to use and quick and easy, and you can make drum charts and transcriptions on your phone and on your tablet and do all kinds of bells and whistles with them that you'd only do otherwise on like Sibelius or Finale, which are very expensive and hard to learn. And he's put his time, his years into building this app for drummers. Next week, we're going to have Dinesh on from Dragonfly Percussion, who was a graduate from Juilliard, who decided he wanted to be able to play beaters, some bass drum beaters with materials that didn't exist out there. So he developed them and refined them, and now he's got a business selling these fantastic bass drum beaters. And this is how Vic Firth got started too. Vic Firth was a timpanist in the Boston Symphony. I think that's right. And
Yes.
and couldn't find mallets that he wanted, like they didn't exist.
Right.
So he made them for himself in a wood shop in his garage or something like that. And then kept making them, and people started thinking, oh, these are really cool. Can I get some? And then now it's like the biggest drumstick company in the world, right? With hundreds of models. And, it started with somebody feeling a need and being dedicated to the craft and the business side of it.
Here it is. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
I've made up a list of other income streams that you could use if mooching off of your family and friends gets old and you want to take some responsibility. And I feel like these are all different things that could relate to your drumming to add on. It's amazing, Jeremy. You just rattled off like about 5 or 6 different ways of making income, and there's so many. If you could just make a huge list, and if you guys would like, I'll just rattle some off.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Yeah,
man.
please do.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so playing multiple instruments. I've had definitely some students who are great drummers, but they end up in cities where moving drums around are really difficult. So I've got several who play guitar, and they get drum gigs and they get guitar gigs. And one, Rebecca Sykes, she's doing singer-songwriter. So she'll be playing a punk rock show one night on drums, or a funk show another night on drums, and then she's at a coffee shop playing acoustic guitar and singing. And she's recording and doing a lot of studio work just from her home. We didn't even bring that up, the whole studio end of things. At this point, if you're going to do studio work, most of it is done from your home. So you have to be like Bart Robley, and he's got a whole recording studio, and he recorded a whole album, his original band. That's one of your other income streams. Rebecca is doing drum tracks. She's finding them up on what is it? Not Zelle, Fiverr. Look at all that gear, man. Jeremy he's ready to deploy over there. Look at that.
He's
ready
loaded
to
for bear.
Right.
Oh, I thought he was showing the washer and dryer. I thought he did
there's washer and
laundry
dryer.
on the side.
Look at
On the
those.
side, he does ironing on the side. Like you bring his shirts and
Whatever it takes.
hey man,
One of the last
a quarter is a quarter. Doesn't matter if I make an iron in your shirt or whatever.
Well, just looking at Jeremy's gear there is equipment rental.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I know.
Go ahead.
I just to add to that, one of my friends who's a drummer, he has a business, a side hustle, providing backline gear to the big drummers that come into town.
There you go.
And he's really well connected with all the New Orleans guys. And so Russell Batiste would come to town. Stanton Moore comes to town. These guys would call him and say, hey, I'm playing at this venue. This is the kid I want. These are the heads I want. He kept reinvesting money into the thing. So he's got like 5 or 6 kits, a whole bunch of guitar amps and bass amps. And, that's his hustle.
Yep, there it is. And then that leads to being a sound person and a light person
Yeah.
for, live and studio work for all of that. And that also leads to being you could be a tech, a drum tech or a music tech for a band. That's a great way to break in, and get you that experience of being on the road. See if you really are cut out to be a road musician. If you think you want to be that, you should kind of test the waters. Go out and be a tech. It might be easier to become a tech perhaps than to have your band break in, and
Like
make.
Sam says, everybody wants to be a cowboy until it's time to go do cowboy stuff.
I love that. I love that line. And then we're into management of bands. That's a whole career. And literally, if you're managing a band or you get into legal, like law, and start learning to do contracts. If you're a musician, Gene calls it contractees. You need to be able to read contracts and know the legalities. And I think that's an essential skill for any musician. But if you got into that, you would be in the music industry, and you're going to be making way more money if you became a lawyer in the entertainment industry, and that could help lead you to other gigs. And what else? Oh, there's concert promotion. Just booking the shows, being the promoter, and there's also opening up a club. We need venues. We need people opening up music venues more than ever. Are you going to say, Jeremy?
Don't do that.
That's a hard gig.
That's a really, really hard gig. I'm teasing,
Right.
of course. Do it if it's something that you've always wanted to do, and like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what a great service this would be to have a venue for, there have to be different size venues for different size bands with different size crowds. And if
Right.
that's what you're into, you go do it. But boy, is that a hard business.
It sure is. And it all fits into that 80-20 rule. Any one of these things could end up being your 20% of effort that becomes your 80% of your income.
I think about this, makes me think about so many of the people that we've had on deck that we've interviewed who now we think of as pillars of the modern drumming community. And I don't just mean drummers. I mean like people like Rob Wallace from Hudson Music.
Correct.
Right.
Rob was just a drummer. We all just start out just as drummers, right? We have an interest, we take some lessons, we learn to play, maybe we play in a band. We're all drummers. We start from that spot. And then he went to the Drummers Collective and they were going out of business. He bought it. He started putting together lists of books that people were using, started a small publishing company. And now it's Hudson Music, which is the biggest publisher of drum books in the world. And we're all Bart and Rick and I are all published on Hudson Music. And they have thousands of titles. And we think of Hudson as like the behemoth, the whale, right? And we think of Vic Firth as the biggest stick company in the world. Oh, how do we ever do that? But it all every one of these things started with just one person with an idea and some grit and some,
and willingness. There's a friend of mine always says, if you're wondering how, the answer is in how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. If you have those three, then you're set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a big difference between wanting to do something and doing it. There's a cavernous difference. And again, I'll point to all of us. Okay. And we can sit here and do it all day long to other drummers, but Rick's, his books didn't write themselves. This is a decade in the making. Jeremy's book, that book didn't write itself. He worked on it. Bandworks isn't successful because, I'd like to have a music school. Right. It's hard to take the hat off at the end of the day, but sometimes you don't want to take the hat off. I'm really enjoying this. Chip's juggling video. I've sat at the NAMM show. I've sat at gigs. I've sat at a club gig beside Chip Ritter many times and watched him juggle sticks. And matter of fact, we were talking about you yesterday, Chip, me and Adam. I go, dude, I had some heavyweights come in one year and play at the NAMM show, at the SMB NAMM Jam. We had some heavyweights come in and play. And Chip was one of them. And the second that dude starts throwing those sticks in the air, it brings the house down and he steals the show. And everybody might as well just go home because it just doesn't matter, and the thing is, I really doubt that Chip woke up one day and said, "Hey, look what I can do." I mean, it's been years of work. You
Yeah.
have to put in the work if you want to write a book. Pen to paper, fingers to keyboards. It's not gonna do itself. And so when somebody's successful at it, good for them. Rob Wallace didn't just invent Hudson Music. It took him
That's
years to build it.
that's another great point, though. If you think about it, when you're being taught or people are instructing you as far as career advice or giving advice about where you want to go, the trajectory of your life and your dreams and your goals, one of the things that's often talked about is to find a mentor, find someone who's doing something like what you want to do and get to know them and ask them for guidance and questions. Ask them questions. One of the best things I ever did was ask people for guidance. You know what I mean? I was trying to get Stick Tricks DV done, and I shopped it to all the publishers, and nobody would bite. And I was just very, very forlorn about the whole process. But I started connecting with people that did video, connecting to video editing people, and I started learning how to actually do it. And those people were where I wanted to be. And I ended up getting to where I wanted to be because of the connections I made through the information those people who are successful at it gave me.
And that's a great point. And most people who are successful, at least the ones that I've come across in the drumming community, are happy to share.
They're happy to help you
It's
out.
not like, no, it's not like, no, I've got mine and you're not going to touch it. Like everyone, rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. But don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed if it's not necessarily a hookup. Sometimes what they gift to you is the how, is go do this, take this action, be willing to take this action. That's a lot of the information that I got was, well, you're going to have to do this and then this and then this. And if I was willing to do that, then I would get the reward.
Cultivate relationships with
relationships
with people who are already doing what you want to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. There it is.
And and Chip, you hit the nail on the head. We all want to share what we have. I think at the end of the day, Rick's written all these books, and he's not a nonprofit. Of course, he's going to take his payment and his check when you buy a book from him. But he wrote the books to help people learn how to play drums. He wants to enrich their lives.
Thanks. Yeah.
Because that's why he wrote the book. He actually wrote the book to try to get out of a ticket, and it didn't work.
So that's going to be his next book.
How to get out of a traffic ticket.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For those who missed it, I got a traffic ticket. I had my cell phone in my hand while I was at a red light, and the cop pulled me over, looks at my license and said, "My son has your drum method book." I'm like, awesome. I teach lessons right over there. And then he still proceeded to give me a ticket. So. Which I'm going to contest.
Sorry, dude. I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject. I just,
No, it's a funny subject.
You know me. I just got to do. I got to say something stupid.
Your focus, right? It's one of those. Where do you want to put your focus on? It's like, wow. My family is like, wow, man, you're getting noticed out there.
That's a good point. That's a good point about bringing value. When you're thinking, hey, I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to do a DVD. When you're thinking about that, somebody gave me some advice to say, well, what's not out there? Mm-hmm. What could you bring to the table of life that would add or enhance somebody's life? What kind of value can you bring? And just like with the beat note, that's a value that this guy brought to the world that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Such a good point, Chip. It's filling a niche that hasn't been fulfilled yet. And one day in a lesson, I did have a student who said, wouldn't it be great, I've shown him these beats, if I had if there were a bunch of songs, a list of a bunch of songs where I could just start jamming this beat. And that combined with lessons from Zorro that I took, where he would make me CDs, here's 10 songs that are halftime shuffle. that combined to help create, it was the impetus of my whole book series. So it was filling a niche that someone needed.
Very
So
cool.
ask people. That's it. What do you need? What would be helpful to you?
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys.
Yeah,
that's
fun.
really good stuff. So let's end the show with this. A simple question, and I already know the answer to it. As much work as we put into this, and as hard as it can be at times, it's also very rewarding.
Yeah.
Jeremy, could you imagine doing anything else?
No, I'd be miserable.
All right, Chip, what about you?
No. I agree with Jeremy. I'd be miserable. What I do is not, doesn't even feel like work. On a good day, I'm looking forward to it. I love what I'm doing, and it's very rewarding. So no, I'm blessed and grateful.
Rick, I already know the answer, but what about you?
I couldn't imagine doing anything else with my life, and I'm going to continue to do this forever.
Yeah,
I love it.
I
Yep.
can't. I mean, and I can't even fathom doing anything else. I mean, and it doesn't matter if it's teaching a lesson, playing a gig, or selling a set of drumsticks. Man, I really,
Yeah.
really, really enjoy it, and you never know. You put it out there in the world, what's going to come of it. You might have, if you're a drum teacher, you might be teaching the next Dave Weckl. Go on and far surpass you as a player, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of what you want. That's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
You won't. That's
Yeah.
very, very cool stuff.
All right,
Well, guys, thanks for watching.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks,
Appreciate you.
everyone.
Play us out, Rick.
All right.